Am I the a-hole for not paying for my brother's stepson's surgery because of why he got injured? Yes, I'm on a throwaway. I think when you read the post, you'll understand why I don't want this story on my main. My brother Ben has a partner, Stacy. Stacy has a son, Jason, who is 16. Jason has always had issues with boundaries. He's, for lack of a better word, a creep, and he always has been since I met him at 5 years old. Overly physical, pushy, disrespectful. Stacy used to think it was cute that he was trying to snuggle my daughter and chasing her around trying to touch her when she said no. I told her more than once that if she didn't get her kid, then my husband was going to, and she wouldn't like that option. That's the only threat that made her ever do anything close to parenting that kid. She coddled him, and when he got bullied for the behavior, she condoned. She made out like it was everyone else's fault. Over the years, we've seen less of Ben and Stacy as we moved further away to put my daughter in a specific school, so this really isn't an issue that touches my family regularly. When we see them at holidays, I make sure my daughter knows to just give Jason a wide berth. The only reason I'm adding this context is to show a pattern of behavior. Jason has continued to have problems with boundaries. Stacy denies it, but we hear it from Ben. Behavior issues, him being bullied, behavior probation, etc. Anyway, about a month ago, Jason was at a party and groped a girl in his class. He was thrown out of the party, and the girl's brother and a few of his friends followed Jason and, for lack of a better term, beat the crap out of him. Now, this is one of those cases where everybody knows who did it, but nobody filmed it and nobody's talking. And these boys are well liked in school, and their parents are upstanding members of the community with access to lawyers. Point is, they're not going to be able to sue the parents. Jason was left with several broken bones, and one of the injuries in his leg is very severe. The medical insurance Stacy has will cover treatment, but the doctors have said the treatment will likely leave Jason with long-term pain and stiffness, limited mobility, and leaves him at risk of other conditions. There's a kind of surgery he could get, which, as I understand it, would reconstruct that part of his leg, and through physical therapy, he would regain full mobility. That's where I, or at least my money, would come in. Ben and Stacy are begging me to pay for it, and I don't want to. Not for a kid who assaulted a girl. They're saying this decision could affect the rest of his life. But what about his victim? What he did to her could affect the rest of her life. If he doesn't learn that there are consequences to his actions, he could affect a lot of women's lives. I just don't want to be part of fixing something that he got through being an awful little creep to begin with. On the other hand, my brother is distraught. He's worried about what will happen to Jason and the whole family if he's incapacitated by this injury. He's promising to get Jason therapy if we pay for the surgery. I understand their point, especially Stacy. That's her child. He did a bad thing under the influence, and now he might have a limp for the rest of his life. If that were my child, regardless of how I'd raised them, would I want them to suffer forever? I don't know. As you can see, I go back and forth on this. I just want some third-party opinions. Am I awful for thinking this is just his comeuppance and I don't want to bail him out? Addressing common questions. Why am I being asked to pay for the surgery? The surgery needs to be done within a certain amount of time to be most effective. Once the bone starts or has naturally healed, it becomes more complex, and after a certain period, full recovery becomes unlikely. This leaves them with fewer options in terms of selling off assets and appealing with the insurer. As for the GoFundMe, I don't know how you'd promote the GoFundMe when people in town know why Jason got injured. I don't imagine that would go well. Did they file a police report? Yes, they did. Jason identified the kids, but he had a concussion, and the kids lawyered up. I don't think I need to explain why a small police force isn't that interested in trying to prosecute vigilante justice carried out by well-liked kids, with parents who are upstanding members of the community with ample money for legal counsel. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Bro and his wife can take out a loan with a real financial institution, not a friend or relative who most likely wouldn't get paid back. Not the a-hole. This isn't your kid, and he was injured doing the same BS that caused friction in your family to begin with. No is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. Sounds like Stacy needs to teach Jason that too. You have no relationship with this kid, except as the person who warned his mom that his behavior needed boundaries. This is not your circus, and these are not your monkeys. Don't let your brother think that being a sibling means that your deeper pockets are open to him for the asking. That isn't reason enough to negate your previous message to his mom. By cushioning the consequences of her parenting and his behavior, that will only teach them to come to you for bail money the next time. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to give my DNA in order to try and reconcile with my brother? I, 35 male, spoke directly to my brother James, 37 male, for the first time in over 15 years. It was completely my fault. I was a jealous and insecure young man who made a selfish choice with no regard to the long-term consequences. What did I do? I hooked up with Alice, 37 female, who was dating my brother at the time. We did it once, and one of the main reasons why it was only once was because we got caught. James was rightfully upset and understandably had an aggressive response. I could have put him in jail, but guilt and our parents' pressure kept me from actually going through with it. I was kicked out and scolded by the family, both extended and immediate, and James cut me out of his life. Over the years, I was able to regain some form of communication with my parents and younger sister, but James still wanted nothing to do with me. I spent years trying to figure out why I did what I did and got therapy. I made a new life for myself while traveling, getting a college-level education, and starting my own small but successful business. I tried the whole romance thing, but have since decided that long-term companionship just wasn't for me and discovered my lack of desire to be a father. I did end up getting the snip, and in 2020 to 2021, I entered an exclusive arrangement with a friend, Tanya, 36 female, and she ended up getting pregnant. Turns out the damn things that I got clipped grew back, and I now have a beautiful daughter, Emily, 4 female with Tanya. We live about 10 minutes away from each other and have an amazing co-parenting relationship. My parents are aware of Emily and have met her a few times, but have always kept their distance because of James. My sister, on the other hand, has made herself quite familiar with my daughter, and they do have a relationship. I gave up years ago about ever seeing or speaking to James again, so I was surprised when he reached out to me on social media. He asked if Emily was really mine, since she was biracial and looked more like her mother. Tanya is African American, and I didn't respond. My parents later reached out to me and asked me to come see them at their house. I came and was surprised to see both James and Alice there waiting for me. Turns out after a while they made up and got married and agreed to just never talk about me. However, for the past few years, they've been trying to have kids, and it turns out that James can't have biological kids. Don't know all the details, and I didn't ask. Alice and James have fought over this for a while, as Alice wants a bio child of her own, but James refuses to claim and raise a kid that's not related to him. My brother told me that he's willing to finally forgive me and accept me back into his life if I make a donation to help him start a family. My parents were completely on board with this idea and really want me to do this, while I'm hesitant. It's true that I won't be responsible for any potential child that may come of this, but I just feel too weird about the situation, and honestly, I've learned some things about the kind of adults James and Alice grew to be, and I don't think they'd make good parents. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, and fastest way to get them off your back is to say you got your vasectomy redone. With this level of entitled, you owe me mentality happening, I wouldn't be surprised if the update is that the whole family turns their back on OP unless he gets a reversal for family harmony, forgiveness, closure, etc. Meanwhile, OP, you should tell them that's totally fine, because you have a child who is alive and walking around out in the world whom your parents ignore. Tell them that your child was never acknowledged or treated like a cherished grandchild, so as a parent, you cannot in good conscience help bring a grandchild with your DNA into the mix unless the child bearing your DNA already is treated like as they always should have been. Tell them to kiss butt and kick rocks, and then go back to your child and live your life. What you did to your brother was wrong and must have been horrible for him. But if he could forgive Alice while you remained in exile and your parents unjustly punished your daughter, you owe him nothing at this point. Edit. I've been viewing the comments and I just wanted to clarify some things. 1. I don't fault my parents for kicking me out, as I did do a pretty crappy thing and just stayed with a friend. 2. My sister was still dependent on our parents at the time I hooked up with Alice, so I don't fault her for keeping her distance. 3. Yes, my sister knew about James and Alice. However, she didn't tell me because I made it clear outside of James dying. I didn't want to hear anything from him. Communication on my end was never closed, and if my brother wanted me to know what was going on in his life, he'd let me know. 4. When you hurt someone, you can't decide when they should get over it or how they cope. I agree that James's willingness to forgive Alice but not me is a bit strange, but it's not my place to demand he forgive me too. 5. It took a while to realize it, but there was a bit of a golden child syndrome situation with my parents and my brother. He was the first son and excelled academically, while I struggled, and my parents were ashamed that I needed help and got in more trouble than James did. I internalized my insecurities, and me being with Alice was a way I lashed out. Not an excuse, just an explanation. 6. My brother was the wronged party, not me, so it made sense for our parents to prioritize him. I also think he resents that I'm able to pass along the family name while he can't, and is making my parents choose. 7. They have seen and interacted with my daughter. They've even gotten her gifts, but I think they don't do more because they don't want to hurt James. Edit 2. Yes, I did apologize to my brother in the form of a letter 3 years after the fact, at the suggestion of my therapist. I gave it to my mom and asked her to pass it along to my brother. I don't know if he ever read it. Also, I was no contact with both my parents for that first year after I was kicked out, and then went low contact with my mom and very low contact with my dad. I'm in regular contact with my sister. James gave me a broken nose. He just did it outside, and the neighbors called the police. By the time they arrived, our dad had already separated us, and I got some ice while James went to cool off at a friend's house. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to spend Christmas at home if my sister is released from her eating disorder clinic for the holidays? My sister, 18 female, has been in an inpatient eating disorder clinic since September. This is her 3rd or 4th time doing a clinic like this. It's been 7 years of her eating disorder, and it's been hell for her, yes, but it has also been hell for the rest of us. Ever since my sister started getting sick, she has turned into a monster toward me, 16 female. We were never BFFs or anything, but I never thought she hated me like she has claimed to, since the eating disorder stuff started. For years, she has called me repulsive and humongous. She told me she would rather die than look like me or be my size. I'm not even overweight. My body is just shaped differently than hers. She's naturally slender and doesn't have bigger curves, but I do. I developed differently. To her, that makes me even fatter than her, and she already thinks she's fat when she was never even a pound overweight. She was always super skinny. At her worst, and this was this year, she told me she wanted me to die because I was so fat and disgusting, and it made her rage that I was taking life away from a skinny person who deserves to be here. She actually had to be taken away from me because she was mad when she said it, and she acted like she wanted to make sure I didn't keep taking a life away from someone skinnier. When she kept trying to find me and take care of business, I had to leave the house for several hours while they called people to come and help her. I was legit afraid of her doing something to me, and so were our parents. I don't have to say anything to her for her to attack me and how I look. But to wish me dead over it was a new low, and it was how she said it, and the way she was acting that made it a million times worse. My parents and my extended maternal family always expected me to be understanding and forgiving, and to not hold on to any of what my sister says to me. They told me she's sick, she can't control what she says, that the eating disorder is doing the talking for her. My paternal grandparents were the ones who sided with me, and defended me having some hard feelings toward my sister. They told my parents and maternal extended family that the last incident should be more than enough for them to understand why I wouldn't want to be around her. My parents argued that she's still my sister. I told them I was tired of being her emotional punching bag and that I was almost more. They told me it wasn't my choice and we need to pull together as a family. My sister wrote me a letter from her clinic, and it was so messed up I can't say what she wrote to me, but it wasn't the apology it was meant to be. My parents know about it, so does my extended family on both sides, and so does the clinic treating my sister. It's known, and still my parents fought for my sister to be able to spend Christmas Day with us. They said she needs to be around family to help her keep healing. When I found out, I told them I couldn't believe they'd ask me to spend Christmas with her. We fought, and I told them I was going to my paternal grandparents' house, and they could spend Christmas with my sister if they want. They told me I need to stay home this Christmas. I told them I won't be home if she's there, and that it would be the worst Christmas for me if I had to spend it with her. My parents keep reminding me that I'm still a minor and they have final say. But my grandparents and I have planned it out so my parents can't stop it without grabbing and dragging me home. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. So proud of you for making that boundary and realizing how toxic that situation is at 16 years old. It's a shame your parents aren't defending you more. I would suggest continuing to spend Christmas with your paternal grandparents and anyone who is willing to protect you from your sister. She is wrong. She knows right from wrong, but because she's been allowed to act the way she is, with no repercussions, she continues to take her anger out on you. Continue to protect yourself and keep yourself away from your sister. Right now, the only people who don't expect me to just deal with my sister treating me that way is my paternal grandparents. My parents and all of Mom's side are like, she's sick, she can't help it, so you need to be there and stop pulling away from her. But they aren't the people who get all kinds of ugly stuff said to them and for no reason. She doesn't treat them like she treats me, even if she does give them a hard time in other ways. Notify CPS that she's threatening you and your parents aren't protecting you from her. Stay with your grandparents. Her eating disorder has nothing to do with her abusing you. Not the a-hole. At 16, you might be able to be emancipated or asked to move to your grandparents. Are your parents in therapy? Because if they aren't, your sister will relapse anytime she's home, and that means you being in danger. My parents have seen a therapist a couple of times, but they're not in active therapy and neither am I. I have never spoken to an actual therapist for myself. I was dragged to a few of my sister's sessions and those were never pleasant. Talk with your grandparents about emancipation, saying that you are no longer safe at home. Talk with a lawyer at least. Maybe the move to your grandparents can be more permanent until your parents see the threat your sister is to your life. Emancipation is not an option for financial reasons. They are trying to find out if they could get custody of me, but that hasn't been so straightforward for them. Right now, Christmas is the biggest concern, and as long as she's in treatment outside of Christmas, we can figure out custody stuff after.